Just answering questions with WAPTech. A bunch of statements were made under one of my videos on my channel that, if you read them carefully, you can figure out where they came from, and it's somebody parroting some information they got somewhere. When you do that, if you're watching, uh, all you're doing is proving to me that you didn't look any of this up. People sometimes treat commentary on the internet as ammunition. You rapid fire a bunch of crap, and you can win an argument. And even if you lose, you just claim that you won because you're playing pigeon chess. Please look that up before you respond. So I'm going to read the answers before I read the question. One of them in here is a sign that maybe the person was just speaking into their cell phone and having it typed for them. An anti-bribery statement. This is a non-binding or binding, depending on situation, statement or promise not to take bribes. That sounds pretty obvious. When you try to look up what that has to do with anything in specific, one of the examples I found was in Chicago. Many jobs that had people somehow take bribes to do something, and they didn't have any power to do anything, but they got bribes. In Chicago, you could have a job that seems really odd to have a statement like this, but you have to actually sign it that you understand that you can be fired immediately for taking any form of bribe. It's because of unions. Unions have a level of corruption to them sometimes. And in Chicago, certain unions, if you're a member of the union and you're doing a job, you acknowledge that you do not have union representation the instant you are caught taking a bribe. You could have all sorts of jobs like that. But an anti-bribery statement, when signed by, let's say, a lawyer, would be which city? And is there a blanket or implied statement that this applies to all lawyers? Now we'll move on to the next thing I'm going to be stating facts about. All states, whether I look them up individually or as a group, all of them assert about each other that it's illegal to engage in the practice of law by representing someone else, whether for pay or not. Acting on someone's behalf to be their legal representative, power of attorney. You can't do that without obtaining a license from the state. Period. The reason being, if you're defending someone who may face life imprisonment or the death penalty, you're literally doing something that has the power of life and death consequences to it. And your incompetency should not result in someone being dead. There's a duty within the legal system that says that you cannot be an incompetent lawyer and represent somebody. Does this apply to an individual? I can represent myself in court, and the court is, under some very limited conditions, somewhat less limited these days for the reasons I'm going to bring up, they're allowed to basically say, you're incompetent to represent yourself. You can stand trial, but you're incompetent to represent yourself because you do not understand the gravity of your situation. Attorneys must have a license before they can practice law in any state, simply because the state has decided that they can do so much harm by being stupid that they have to actually prove that they know what they're doing. Saying that they don't have to have licenses, or that the state does not have the power to license a lawyer or whatever, is simply defying what is really going on. Saying so, defying reality, isn't something that deserves to be respected. And if someone says, well, you have to prove me wrong, no, I don't. Reality already did. And you didn't prove yourself right because the duty, the onus of truth, proof, the burden of it, is on the person making an assertion that's outlandish like this. License requirements in each state can differ slightly or greatly depending on what you're talking about for various things. License requirements for lawyers should be looked up for each state. Each state also has variances and variations in how they word things when you take an oath of office or a promise. There is an oath of office for a lawyer, and each state is fairly similar. And one of the parts of it is that you solemnly swear that you will support and or uphold the Constitution of the United States. Someone yelling out what they think is a thought-terminating cliche of look up U.S. Code 101. Or it's a Title 14 person. Okay, Title 14 under what? What do you mean? You're making a reference but only giving half of it. You're making a statement of something being factual and you're giving a citation. No, I'm not. If you're stating that under a certain law something is true but you don't tell me what the law is, then I have no reason to listen to you or believe you. Again, the burden of proof is on the person making the assertion of fact. If you decide to make it somewhat precise by saying U.S. Code 101, which one? Now I'm going to read the exact quote and you'll find out where this went, but this person is essentially repeating what they heard without knowing what they're talking about, or not. Let's look up U.S. Code 101 and see how many of them have anything to do with an oath of office. There's a 39 U.S.C. 1011, that's a oath of office for the Postal Service, and there's a 04 U.S.C. 101 legislative oath of office. Both say, I solemnly swear to support the U.S. Constitution. But saying USC or U.S. Code or just Code 101 doesn't mean anything. But I'm going to read back what the person actually typed because it proves immediately they don't know what they were talking about. No, the person wasn't being clever. Someone asserting that a judge, attorney, prosecutor, lawyer, or a bailiff has to be a foreign agent so that you can start making demands on them doesn't make sense for a couple of reasons. If you're not aware of it, if someone is a foreign agent, then under the Foreign Registrations Act of 1938, they may be required to register with the Attorney General if they're representing a foreign principal or acting on behalf of them as a foreign agent. A lawyer in the United States can, in some cases, be hired to represent an entire country, like Iran. That's not an impossible thing to do. And at that point, would that person have to register as a foreign agent? At that point, I do believe so. But the point is, just because that can actually occur doesn't mean you can just say all lawyers or all judges are foreign agents. And where did this come from? Well, you need to look it up. No, what it comes from is people claiming that every lawyer, judge, or whatever, anybody they want to disempower so they can be kicked out of the courtroom for some reason, they just claim that they're working for a foreign government because the Vatican owns the spaceship that houses the ecclesiastical boogie board or something. They can make up any statement they want to, and then you're supposed to listen to them in court and actually sit down and parse that. No, you say, unless you're going to present factual data, we don't have to listen to the assertion. And the minute you just start saying, well, I'm not acknowledging the authority of the court, at that point, if you were attempting to represent yourself in a court case, you weren't allowed to anymore because you're incompetent to represent yourself. And then the court ignores you because you're a raving lunatic at that point, and sovereign citizens go out of their way to do this. Now, back in the 60s and 70s, or maybe earlier, a person could get into a courtroom and play dumb and make it take longer. I understand that. And some very powerful lawyers would bring up endless reams of motions and stuff to try to delay a court case for maybe several years. This was done on behalf of rich people that were willing to pay for sometimes thousands of hours of work by a lawyer trying to pull these tricks in a courtroom. Somebody decided to look up these court cases and look up all the things that were cited that would end up derailing the court and make books about it or look it up and put it on the internet. Some of these people decided to do video series that they would hand you on VHS tapes and charge you $500 to have so you could learn how to totally stymie the legal system. And at one time or another, a lot of these people admitted that they were doing it as a form of harassment of the court system. And a lot of people, including myself, thought that was kind of appropriate sometimes. Sometimes the legal system just runs over a little guy. But the point is, it doesn't work anymore because the legal system made changes, including saying, if you make a nonsensical argument, we're allowed to forbid you from making the next one. Because we don't have to have a presumption that you're competent to represent yourself if you're trying to prove you're an idiot. And playing dumb in a courtroom is a great way to be told you're not allowed to do it anymore. And also it should be pointed out, a lot of these lawyers eventually stupidly admitted in public or on recording or just were witnessed saying they did these things to slow up the court and not really win a case. The point was to make it a war of attrition. Wesley Snipes went to court claiming he didn't have to pay taxes because made up bullshit reasons. That works, but all it does is delay it. If you just need more time to collect the tax money to pay your taxes, what you do is you run the case up, You figure out how much you owe, get as much money together as you can, and then the interest, and then just suddenly pay off the IRS and say, I'm paying you. Well, there's a court case pending. Are you refusing to take payment? If you ask somebody that, they'll take the payment. They don't want to even deal with that because that is a legal trap right there. You have to accept the payment. The IRS has been told on a legal basis they have to accept payments, even from the mob. A good mobster pays his taxes because then the legal system can't come after him for taxes. You have to prove he committed a crime, not that he simply earned money and won't tell you how he got it. I'm sorry, but that's kind of the thing. So, let's review really quickly. A person yelling at the judge or the opposing lawyer that they're trying to defeat, I don't acknowledge your authority because you're a foreign agent, because I made a bullshit story, or I paid somebody $50 to come up with this argument. The judge then says, since you're not offering any evidence of this, we can assume you're incompetent. I mean, that's a fast version of what would happen in court. Also, telling a judge that you don't acknowledge their authority means that you do not have the ability to defend yourself in court, because the presumption is you acknowledge the authority of the court, otherwise you wouldn't be dealing with them. And no, you can't get out of being judged in a courtroom, and also mental patients still get judged sometimes too. So let's read the assertion someone made. There's no such thing as a license to practice law. Counterpoint. Yes, there is, and this isn't even an argument anymore. It exists. It's asserted by the legal system. If you're saying a misinterpretation of the word license or to practice law, that's not real. That's not the actual discussion. If you're saying a person can practice law on their own behalf, yes, but there is a licensing if you want to represent someone else. Do you have evidence that a lawyer has an oath of office as required by Title FOR, U.S. Code 101? So what this proves to me is the person's repeating, either they're using their phone to do it and didn't understand it was number 4. I don't believe that. Or they heard a podcast or something like that, or read it off the internet, or somebody misinterpreted it. Title 4, U.S. Code 101, or Title number 4, U.S. Code number 101. No, you're not being clever. You're proving you're an idiot. You're referring to number 4, USC 101, the legislative oath of office requirement. Unless a lawyer is actually acting as a legislator, they don't have to take that particular oath of office. Well, no, it isn't. I'm acting as literally judge, jury, executioner, and whipping boy here. You aren't allowed to make arguments that are nonsensical like that, when the main point here is you didn't know what you typed. Did this lawyer file a Foreign Registration Statement Act as per Foreign Registrations Act requires? I'm not even sure what you were saying there. Mandatory. Does this lawyer have a certificate in good standing with the American Bar Association? Is he registered with the Secretary of State? What about a signed anti-bribery statement? This is a barrage of what-ifs and yeah-buts. And under a video where I explain to people, David Windmiller and other sovereign citizen conspiracy theorists and quantum grammar Nazis, as I call them, all do the same thing the original sovereign citizen bullshit story makers did. They looked up a bunch of assertions that were made in court that worked for a case, tell you to invoke them, and annoy the court by continually bringing up one after another. I mean, it's a book this thick of shit that you file paperwork on. It's called paper terrorism. It's a way of slowing down the courtroom. And the court just says, if you bring one inaccurately done filing, you won't be allowed to do any because you're incompetent. You're done. You actually pay your parking ticket all of a sudden and your speeding ticket. And again, it's for petty shit people do this. These are the people who will stop in the middle of the road, stop four-way traffic if they can find a way to do it, to make you stop honking at them because they're triggered. It's the same shit. I've never seen any of these people do any of this for anything serious except trying to avoid paying taxes. If you don't want to pay taxes, there's plenty of ways of getting out of it. But you're going to have to go read some stuff and learn some stuff. And by the way, it's FOUR, U.S. Code 101, not FOR. Anyway, that was our response today to a bunch of comments left under one of my videos. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with it.